Hey there, I'm Jackie Ferris. This week on the 302, we are enjoying Thanksgiving at Winterthur. We are enjoying some of the traditions that the DuPont family had. We're checking out their tablescapes, and there's even something for the kids. Get ready for a fantastic half-hour feast. The 302 is headed your way. Hey everyone, we are serving up a Winterthur Thanksgiving, complete with traditions and table settings and all the fixins. I'm joined now by Eileen Shack to tell us a little bit about some of those traditions. Now, Eileen, thank you so much for joining us. Now, we are in the soup tureen gallery right now where people can come and check out all of these soup tureens, right?
Yes, they're fun and funky and fabulous. This is the Dorrance Gallery. It's named for John Dorrance Jr., who was the chairman of the Campbell Soup Company, and they donated these Campbell Soup tureens to us in 1997.
Now, we do have some really cool tureens that would be used for Thanksgiving, and
Fantastic.
One of the big DuPont traditions was soup.
Yes, soup was featured in all of the menus for lunches and dinners that were served in the DuPont dining room. We know that that was a tradition in the DuPont family that was passed down from Pauline Foster, our founder Henry Francis's mother, and she was a big proponent of terrapin soup being served with sherry for holidays.
That's amazing. I know personally I am a French onion soup fan, and I actually judge restaurants based on their soup. So was there any other kinds of soups or foods that the family enjoyed for Thanksgiving?
Well, yes, certainly. I mean, they had a turkey farm, so
Okay.
they had access to hundreds of turkeys that they would not only be able to serve themselves as well as guineas and hens for the holidays, but they would also be able to gift those turkeys to other family and friends. And we know that DuPont kept a Thanksgiving turkey list, a very long list of names of people who he would send turkeys to for the holidays.
And if you didn't write a thank you note?
You did not make it the list the next year.
So turkeys were just a part of all of the animals that were raised here. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Correct. So it was a 2,500-acre estate made up of 20 working farms. And one of the farms was the poultry farm, the Swain farm, which had the turkeys and the squabs and the hens. But then there was also beef cattle. There was a sheep farm. There were crops that were grown here. So at their disposal, they had many, many farm items that they could serve on the table for the holidays.
That's just amazing. 100 turkeys as gifts. Never mind how many turkeys would they traditionally have for the family meal? Because wouldn't he invite like a lot of his family?
Yes. So the actual day of Thanksgiving might be an intimate affair with just a couple of close friends and family. But then for the weekend on Friday and Saturday of Thanksgiving weekend, he would have lots of people over, many guests who would be able to enjoy all of what was here on the estate. So card playing and, singing around the piano, all sorts of fun family activities that they could do here. And dinner would be several turkeys or several guineas, if that happened to be what was the preferred.
Now, where would this feast happen? In the
DuPont dining room. All lunches and dinners were served in the DuPont family dining room.
So I know that you have a tremendous wealth of documentation. Do you have things like menus and lists? Because I can imagine it took a lot of work to pull off, a feast on the weekend.
Yes, he was the consummate host, Henry DuPont, so no detail was too small for him. So he kept many, many lists, and we have records of all of the menus going back decades for not just holidays, but every lunch and dinner that was served here in the dining room. So we can recreate a lot of those meals, as well as look back and see who was sitting around the table, what they ate, what the menu was. So it's wonderful that we have all those records. Plus, he had his own personal secretary. So we have all of the memos that he would send to the cook, Mrs. Folsham, where he would say, I acquired the terrapin. Mrs. Folsham, you'll need to make it up and have it prepared and ready to go. So he took on task himself as well as delegated.
That's amazing. So do you also have like recipe cards and things from Mrs. Folsham? So
No.
you know? No?
Yeah, Mrs. Folsham was a cook who probably did not use
All
recipe
in here.
cards.
Yeah, yeah. So when they had these celebrations, I know that, you know, he was a big fan of theme and using things from the outdoor, the inspiration of nature to the table, like Outside In, a former exhibit that you guys had. So would these meals be themed, or would they just be, let's be elegant and serve a delicious meal?
Certainly. The whole theme would always be wrapped around the flowers. So the flowers were the central core. The color of the flowers would dictate much of the meal, much of the tablescape. So for Thanksgiving, he was known to love chrysanthemums.
Oh,
he
nice.
has a greenhouse complex of a dozen and a half structures. One entire greenhouse was dedicated to growing chrysanthemums. And we know that he filled his conservatories with chrysanthemums.
Absolutely. It's such a beautiful flower. Are they still being grown on the property?
No, they were grown for many years after he passed away, and the Winterthur Museum and Garden would still continue to grow those chrysanthemums and sell them, but we don't do that anymore.
So are there any modern day traditions that the people that work here observe for Thanksgiving?
Well, we have a really fantastic event called Truck and Tractor Day, and that is the first Saturday in October, and that really celebrates what farm life was like here.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing these traditions with us. And we have so much more straight ahead on our Winterthur Thanksgiving. Stay with us.
My name is Ashley Dion from Jamestown Catering, and we are serving it up on the 302.
Welcome back. I am joined by Jen Jackson. Jen, where are we?
We are in an area that most visitors don't get to see. This is our glass and ceramic study area. We have samplings of various ceramics and glass in our collection stored in this room, usually used for workshops.
So, I mean, this is amazing, folks. You walk around this room and it is filled with all kinds of china and glass, and this must be just a great place to work.
It really is. I see something new every single day.
Now, we're here to talk about Thanksgiving with the DuPont family, and you have assembled a place setting for us. Tell us a little bit about what we have on the table here.
Sure. We have a couple of examples of late 1700s English ceramics and early to mid 1800s ceramic or earthenware. Mr. DuPont had more than 50 sets of dishes that he would use for his personal use.
Wow.
A little more than most of us have today.
A little bit, just a bit.
When he was having a dinner party, he would have the head gardener bring down a selection of flowers that were in bloom in either the greenhouses or the cutting gardens, and they would choose a flower. From that, the butler would then bring down several plates to match with the flowers, and he would choose a set of dishes that complemented the flowers in bloom. And then the table linens were chosen based on that. So he would have chosen colors that complemented the flowers or played off of the flowers well. The place setting that I chose to really demonstrate is the Wedgwood dish set right here with green and kind of golden yellow tones. So I thought they played off the flower arrangement very nicely.
Absolutely. And the copper dish with kind of like the Greek.
Yes, that is a copper lusterware, and that's about mid 1800s English Staffordshire region.
Really, really beautiful. And then you have the pastoral scene on the plate there.
Yes.
Tell me about that one.
That is a transfer print earthenware. It's later 1700s.
So what kinds of meals would be served? I know that typically each dish, it's not just a dish, it serves a function.
Yes. Well, one of the things that he liked to do was use unusual containers for flower arrangements. This container is a planter, so that's not really unusual, but often he would use a soup tureen as a container for the floral arrangement.
So whenever we would have these very large Thanksgiving meals, or actually I guess it was a party on the weekend following Thanksgiving, what kinds of, what kind of layout would we have? Would it be full service or what?
It would be a full service. There would be multiple courses. Each course was served at the table and cleared away after that course was finished, and then the next course brought in. They often brought in extra footmen or butlers to assist with that changeover if they had a large dinner party.
I can imagine. Now, would the linens be, interchangeable, or do the dishes, like these dishes, do they have a specific linen that goes with them?
Not necessarily. It all had to complement the flowers. So we do know that at Thanksgiving and Christmas, they used a tablecloth rather than placemats.
Okay. Well, do they use chargers? Because, a lot of people these days, it's the charger, it's the plate, it's like a whole thing.
I don't know the answer.
I don't know. Well, something to research.
It is something to research.
And speaking of research, I know that you have so much here and you have so much documentation. In looking through, preparing for the show, did you come across anything surprising in your documentation?
I think the most surprising things that we came across were the fact that he really did expect thank you notes.
That's a big thing. Let me tell you, my family too. If you didn't write that thank you note, don't expect whatever it was you got to come again. Seriously. Yeah. So whenever you're taking care of these things, you have such a wide variety of items. How do you preserve these things?
We have a wonderful conservation department. Things that are metal are coated, they're cleaned, and then coated with almost like a polyurethane that will help keep them from tarnishing.
That's good.
We have an amazing preventative conservation crew who takes care of the objects in the actual house museum. They dust, they clean the floors, they look for light damage in objects.
Or fingerprints from hosts that touch things. So one last thing I wanted to ask you is turkey platters. Did they use turkey platters, or did they carve up the bird individually? Did it come out?
They would have carved that up individually. It's more of a presentation, I think. We expect people to carve the turkey at the table now. If you think of it, that's kind of messy. They had a very large dining room table. That was something that would have been done in the kitchen.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Jen, for sharing all of this with us and doing the research and everything. We really appreciate it.
You're
and happy
welcome.
Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Same to you.
We'll be right back.
I'm Debbie Buxton, the Executive Director of the Historic Odessa Foundation. Come discover Odessa with the 302.
Welcome back. We're celebrating a DuPont Thanksgiving, and I'm joined in a kids area by Patrick Wetzel Scott to talk a little bit about all the things that kids can do during the holidays here at Winterthur. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for coming on in. So the space that we're in right now is our Touch It room. So unlike everything else in the museum, everything in here can be touched, can be picked up, can be handled. And so it's really a chance for kids and families to kind of explore and learn by playing. The things in here generally are scaled down versions of what's in the museum. So we tend to see things that are a little bit more child-sized and accessible for the younger visitors that come on in.
So what kinds of things do you teach them? I know that Winterthur is all about preservation of fine items and decorative objects. So what do you teach them with the objects that you have here?
Sure. So the space that we're sitting in right now is modeled after an 18th century parlor. So they get to learn a little bit about life in the 18th century, the objects that are involved, and also what it was like to use a space like this. A parlor is a space that unlike a lot of houses today, was totally multi-purpose. It was kind of in a moment before people decided this is the bedroom, this is the dining room, this is what this is going to be. So like this table folds up and moves away. The furniture is lightweight, and it's fun to do those activities with the kid, to spin things around, to fold them up, and to let them kind of play with the objects that are here, whether they're teacups and teapots, or if we head over to the fire and pump the bellows and spin our old style toaster.
Sure. Now these teacups are cool in that there's more than meets the eye initially, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of fun. It's a style that's been around for a really long time. As you hold it up to the light, there's clear little bits that almost look like grains of rice, and you see the light shining through. But for the kids that come here, my favorite thing is always flipping it over and seeing the Made in China stamp on there, because it's something that feels very different today. Whereas if we were to go back to, say, the 1780s, things coming, from half a world away were these huge, valuable specialty items. Whereas today we tend to think of things coming from China as being maybe cheaper than they were then.
Now you have some items that you would like to show us.
Sure. So the Touch It Room is open on Saturdays from now until January, but if you're visiting with kids on any other day of the week, we have some kind of adventure backpacks and things you can pick up and take into the galleries of the museum.
Okay.
So the one that I grabbed onto today is set up for one of our galleries on the second floor, and it has some things for families to take in and enjoy with their kids. So for example, you open it up and you have some instructions and directions, things to do in the galleries, some poetry to go with the objects in the collection. So this is all set up for the Dom
really
gallery.
Cool. That's amazing.
Cabinet maker shop upstairs. And then of course, a storybook.
Okay.
And some hands-on things. Let's see, I think I've got an entire bag of wooden pieces there that we can hammer, nail, and screw together with the wooden tools in here.
So it really is different items that are fun, but kind of tell the story. These are, to get them interested in history and all that Winterthur has to offer. Yeah,
really to explore, what life was like, how things were made, and how the objects kind of came into being and made it from then to now.
And you also have a lot of portraits on the walls. Tell me a little bit about the lessons that you teach in regard to the portraits.
Sure, there's a couple of different portraits that we see around us, and some of my favorites are the Gore family children here, and then Benjamin Badger's on the other side of the room. And both Benjamin Badger and in the Gore family children, we see one of the boys on the far right here is still wearing a gown, which is always fun to talk about how dress styles have changed with little kids. And today there's a lot of differences in gender as little kids are being dressed, and boys wear this and girls wear that, and sometimes it's flexible. But when we go back in time, we find that those are different and those things change.
Absolutely.
So we have, the little boy there in his dress, not quite old enough for his breeches.
That's really cute, and they're all kids, so they can all relate. I wanted to ask you, are those water buckets on the back wall? What are those?
Yeah, so those are fire buckets, which carry water.
Sure.
So, if we were to have a fire here in the museum, the sprinklers overhead would go off. But if we were to have a fire in the 18th century, everybody in the neighborhood would bring out their fire bucket and haul water to try to keep the fire from spreading.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So what's the most unusual or fun question that you've gotten from a kid?
I feel like a lot of the kids have questions about the furniture and what's in front of the fire. But one of my favorites is always, we have this kind of like big lump of wood in here that's kind of looks like this giant knotty thing. But if you flip it over and look where it was cut off of the tree, there's this beautiful figure. And that's the kind of thing that was used to make veneer on a lot of the furniture here in the museum.
So tell me, what special things do you guys do for the holidays? We're coming up, we're right on Thanksgiving now, but we're going into Christmas. We know Yuletide is happening, but what's in it for the little kids?
Yeah, once we get into the Yuletide season, the Montgomery room, just across the hall from where this room is, we decorate it for the holidays. We bring out this huge gingerbread house. We have a giant dollhouse, and we set up a station for folks to come in and make holiday cards that we'll send out from our post office.
That's awesome. Well, Patrick, thank you so much for sharing your space with us. And I know you're going to be flooded with little kids eager to learn about Winterthur.
Oh, thanks.
We'll be right back. So, are you getting any ideas for your Thanksgiving? If you happen to visit Winterthur for anything, make sure that you take a picture and share it with us on Facebook. Now, here are a couple of other things you might want to check out. For more information on any of the exhibits here at Winterthur, visit winterthur.org. That'll do it for this week's episode of the 302. Make sure you follow us on Facebook for behind-the-scenes content you're just not going to get anywhere else. We're going to leave you now with a beauty shot of enchanted woods. Until next time, happy Thanksgiving. I'm Jackie Ferris. Tell them you saw it on the 302.